The air was thick with humidity as the small boat cut through the brown waters of the Congo River, its old engine sputtering with every push forward. Reverend Samuel Green wiped the sweat from his brow, watching the dense jungle on either side of the river bank with a quiet intensity. Towering trees loomed overhead, their branches heavy with vines that seemed to whisper in the light breeze. The Congo was a place of mystery, a vast and untamed wilderness that had resisted colonization for centuries. To Green, it was both a place of spiritual duty and a realm of unspoken dangers. "Sam, are you sure this is the right way?" Brother Thomas called from the back of the boat. His voice, strained with concern, broke through the constant hum of insects and the gentle slosh of water against the hull. Green turned to his fellow missionary and gave a confident nod. "It's the path the village elder described. Another few hours, and we should reach the settlement." Thomas wasn't convinced. He had been uneasy ever since they entered the deeper parts of the Congo Basin. The jungle here felt different, ancient, as if it held secrets that no human should ever uncover. He wasn't the only one who felt it. Sister Margaret, their schoolteacher and nurse, was sitting quietly beside Brother Michael, staring into the murky water as though expecting something to rise from its depths. Michael, the youngest of the group, was busy tinkering with the boat's engine, trying to coax it into a more consistent rhythm. "We're all uneasy, Thomas," Margaret said softly. "But we've been through worse. God is with us, even here." "I know, sister," Thomas muttered. "But something about this place." Green didn't disagree. They were traveling to a remote village that none of them had visited before, one that had remained isolated deep in the jungle, cut off from the rest of the world for reasons no one had fully explained. The mission was to bring medical supplies and, of course, to spread the word. But they'd heard strange stories from the locals at the last village, rumors of a creature, something ancient and enormous that lived in the rivers and swamps, a beast the villagers called Mokele Mbembe. Margaret had asked the village elder what the name meant. "The one who stops the flow of rivers," he had said, his eyes wide with fear. Green, a man of strong faith, had brushed off the stories as superstition. Africa, like many other places he had traveled, was rich with folklore. But now, as they pressed further into the jungle, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. By late afternoon, the sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the water. The boat had begun to struggle more as they entered a swampy region, where the river branched out into sluggish tributaries. Michael wiped his hands on a rag, his brow furrowed with frustration. "Engine's overheating," he announced. "We need to stop for a bit, let it cool down." Green scanned the shoreline. "There's a clearing up ahead. We can stop there." They steered the boat toward a small patch of dry land nestled between two enormous trees whose roots dipped into the water like claws. The jungle around them seemed unnaturally still. The constant hum of life they had grown accustomed to had faded, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. The four missionaries stepped off the boat, stretching their legs and taking in their surroundings. The swamp had an oppressive feel to it, as if the very air was thick with tension. Green knelt by the edge of the water, scooping up a handful of it and watching as it trickled through his fingers. "Looks like it's going to rain," Margaret observed, glancing up at the sky. The clouds were growing heavy and dark, casting a gloom over the already dim jungle. "We'll wait an hour, no more," Green said. "Then we'll press on." As they sat in the clearing, resting and eating from their meager rations, Thomas began to talk again about the stories they had heard. "Mokele Mbembe," he said quietly. "Some people think it's a dinosaur. A living relic from the past." Michael chuckled nervously. "A dinosaur? You don't actually believe that, do you?" Thomas shrugged. "The locals believe in it. They say it's been here longer than they have, that it can destroy entire villages, crush boats, and stop rivers with its size. Margaret shifted uncomfortably. "It's just a story, Thomas. There's no such thing as monsters." The conversation drifted off, and the group fell into an uneasy silence. But Green's mind lingered on the tale. He didn't believe in monsters, but he did believe in the unknown. And the jungle held many unknowns. As dusk approached, a low rumbling sound echoed through the trees. At first, the missionaries thought it was thunder, but the noise continued, a deep, guttural sound that seemed to vibrate through the ground. "What was that?" Margaret asked, her voice tight with fear. Before anyone could answer, the water near their boat began to ripple, as though something massive was moving beneath the surface. The group stood frozen, eyes wide, as the water parted, and something enormous broke through the surface. The creature was unlike anything they had ever seen. Its body was long and serpentine, with thick, leathery skin that glistened in the fading light. It moved slowly, its head rising from the water like the neck of a massive serpent. But what struck them most was its sheer size. The creature was at least 30 feet long, with a bulky, powerful torso and thick legs that churned the water as it moved toward the shore. "Dear God," Thomas whispered, backing away. The creature let out another low rumble, its eyes, small and beady, fixed on the group. It was as if the jungle itself had come alive, manifesting its darkest secrets in the form of this living nightmare. "Get back to the boat!" Green shouted, grabbing Margaret's arm and pulling her toward the water. But the creature moved with surprising speed, crashing through the water toward them. Its massive tail swung out, slamming into the boat with such force that it flipped over, sending supplies and equipment scattering into the river. Michael scrambled to his feet, but the beast was too fast. Its long neck shot out, jaws wide, and clamped down on him with a sickening crunch. His scream was cut short as he was pulled beneath the surface. "Run!" Green yelled, his voice filled with desperation. The remaining 3 missionaries fled into the jungle, branches and vines slashing at their faces and arms as they ran. The ground beneath them was slick with mud, and the sound of the creature crashing through the water grew louder with every passing second. They stumbled through the dense foliage, the oppressive darkness closing in around them. Behind them, the deep rumbling of Mokele Mbembe echoed through the jungle, its massive body crashing through the underbrush as it pursued them. "We can't outrun it," Thomas gasped, struggling to keep up. Green knew he was right. The creature was too fast, too powerful. They needed a plan, and fast. "There!" Green pointed to a rocky outcrop rising from the swamp, a small hill covered in moss and vines. "We'll make a stand there." The 3 of them scrambled up the rocks, their hands slipping on the wet stone. The creature followed, its heavy body smashing through the trees as it neared the base of the hill. It let out a deep bellow, a sound that seemed to shake the very ground beneath them. "Samuel, what do we do?" Margaret cried, clutching Green's arm. He didn't answer. He was too busy scanning the area, searching for anything they could use to defend themselves. But the jungle offered little in the way of weapons. They had no guns, no knives, only their faith. "God will protect us," Green muttered, though his voice lacked conviction. The creature reached the base of the hill, its long neck stretching upward as it eyed them hungrily. It was a predator, a force of nature, and they were nothing more than prey. "Samuel, we need to do something," Thomas shouted. The creature lunged, its massive jaws snapping just inches from Green's face. He stumbled backward, nearly losing his footing on the slick rock. Thomas grabbed a fallen branch and swung it wildly at the beast, but it was like trying to fight a mountain. The branch splintered against its hide, and the creature bellowed in rage. Suddenly, the creature stopped. Its body went rigid, and it let out a low, guttural growl. Slowly, it turned its massive head and looked toward the river. The missionaries watched in confusion as the beast backed away, its eyes wide with what could only be described as fear. "What's it doing?" Margaret whispered. Before anyone could answer, a new sound echoed through the jungle, the rhythmic beat of drums, distant at first, but growing louder with each passing moment. The creature let out a final roar and disappeared into the trees, its massive form vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. The jungle was silent once more. The three missionaries stood in stunned silence, their hearts racing, their minds struggling to comprehend what had just happened. Did it leave?" Thomas asked, his voice trembling. Green nodded slowly. "I think so." They descended from the rocky outcrop, their legs shaky and their bodies bruised. The jungle around them felt different now, quieter, as though the presence of Mokele Mbembe had been the source of its oppressive tension. "What do we do now?" Margaret asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Green stared into the darkness, the distant sound of drums still echoing in his ears. "We keep moving," he said, his voice firm. "We finish our mission." But as they made their way back to the river, one thing was clear: they were not alone in the jungle. The creature might have left, but something else was watching them, something even more dangerous than Mokele Mbembe. And it was waiting for them.